And everything was going smoothly. He had his confirmation hearings, he was well liked, he got voted out of committee. And then the National Rifle Association sent a letter one day to every senator in the country saying, we oppose the confirmation of Vivek Murthy. Now, why did they oppose his confirmation? Well, it turns out that during his time as a physician organizer, there had been a mass shooting at an elementary school, and Vivek had taken to Twitter to say that guns are a public health issue. Now, to anybody in this room, that is not shocking news. That's not new information. We all know that guns are a public health issue because anything that's killing large numbers of people and can be prevented is a public health issue. But the National Rifle Association decided that this made him unqualified in their eyes to serve as the nation's top doctor. And so they sent this letter to the Senate, and several senators, including several Democratic senators, backed down. They got scared because they knew that the NRA is a very powerful force. And the NRA raises a lot of money and spends a lot of money on campaigns. And no senator who's running a tough race wants to be challenged by the NRA. And so it looked like we weren't going to get the confirmation. It looked like Vivek Murthy was not going to finally break that glass ceiling and become America's top doctor. But at this point, my old summer camp friend called me. He said, Parag, I'm in trouble. I know a lot about medicine and you know a lot about politics. So can you help me again? And we put together a plan with my partner Mehta and a bunch of other young Indian American political organizers. We, the black sheep of our family, we came together and we put together an organizing strategy. And we put together the political strategy, the fundraising strategy, the community messaging strategy, and the whole community responded. And I just want to tell you how amazing this was. To see Indian uncles and aunties from all over the country picking up the phone, calling their member of Congress, calling their senator, and saying, remember that time that I came to your fundraiser? Remember that time I bought that $100 plate and all I asked for was a photograph? Well, now I'm asking for something else. I'm asking you to put your partisanship aside. I'm asking you not to be scared of the NRA. I'm asking you to vote for this confirmation. Confirm qualified physician to be the Surgeon General. And it worked. For the first time in history, the National Rifle Association lost, and we won. Once again, I say to you, this is the power of community. This is the power of community, not Democrats or Republicans, not Indian or Pakistani or Bangladeshi. This is the power of a community that says, this is our home. We are not foreigners here. We will not be perpetual foreigners in this country. This is not a destination for us. This is where we live. This is our home. And when they took it back, they put Vivek Murthy in that office. It was such a proud day. I remember Vaibhav and I took him out for dinner to celebrate Vaibhav's favorite dinner, which is dosas at Amma's. And we're sitting there at the restaurant, and we're eating, and every 5 minutes, somebody comes up to him and says, are you Vivek Murthy? I'm so proud of you. Can I get a picture? And we were like, we'll take pictures with anybody who wants a picture today. And my favorite was when one gentleman came up to us, and he said, I don't need a photograph. I don't want your autograph. I just want to tell you something. He was an older gentleman. He said, when I heard on the news that you became Surgeon General, I felt like I had become Surgeon General. I felt like this was what it was all for. All the sacrifice and giving up everything and leaving my home so that one day I could see youngsters like you reach this position and show me that it was all worth the sacrifice. That's an amazing moment. The work we get to do is amazing. And so what are we doing now? Well, for the last year since he's been in office, we have been traveling around the country, meeting with people, talking about the very issues you all are talking about. We talk about mental health and emotional well-being. We talk about climate change and how it's leading to more vector-borne diseases like Lyme disease. We talk about disparities in healthcare. Did you know that South Asians are more likely, twice as likely, to get diabetes than non-South Asians? We have some of the highest rates of heart disease among South Asian men. These health disparities break the myth of the model minority. You know the myth of the model minority, right? The myth that we're all educated, we're all well off, we're all doing fine. And you know, when I explain to people in our community that this is a bad thing for us, they don't understand why, because they say, well, it sounds like a compliment, right? They think we're all spelling bee champions and doctors. And some of us are, and good for you. But here's the problem with that. It's a compliment right up until it becomes an excuse to ignore us. Because when they use the model minority myth to say that's why we don't need to invest in South Asian communities, that's why we don't need to invest in clinical trials where you have South Asian patients participating, that's why we don't need to include South Asians in our voter registration drives, then it's no longer a compliment. Then it's a huge, huge insult. And so I came here to Washington to work on these issues through the White House Initiative, and now I still work on them today, because it turns out that even in public health, that health equity is a civil rights issue. When there are people in our community whose zip code matters more than their genetic code, then that means that we are not doing our job as a nation. And that's where the nation's top doctor has a role to play. So, we have outlined an agenda that's based on 2 key principles. The first is prevention. We do a very good job in this country of treating disease. We're actually better at it than almost any other nation in the world. World-class inventions and research and technology come just from a few miles away from here, the laboratories of the National Institutes for Health. We spend most of our healthcare dollars on research and funding for treatment. But we spend very, very little in preventing disease from happening in the first place. And that has to be our priority in the 21st century. We need to start preventing those illnesses